Well, Divine Kika is here to let us know if that's actually a possibility.
Tantra is a path like Zen or yoga that uses sexuality as a door to awareness. So one of the things that we need to learn is that every folding in the body is a potential erogenous zone. Can you actually take the time and start slow and become your own very best lover?
There's a lot of power in one kiss.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we think about we are beings of water, and I say, I share the essence of my being. Here, have a cup of me.
Welcome to Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. Here's your host, Divine Kika.
This is Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. I'm your host, Divine Kika, and today we have Crystal Down here with us. Hello, Crystal.
Hi, Kika. I'm really happy to be here.
You came all the way from Sedona to be with us?
I did. I was drove out here to go to a meditation retreat up in Burlingame and came down here to speak with you.
Fantastic.
I'm really excited to be here and be on your show.
Yeah, and Crystal Down and I come a long way. We did Margot Anand teachers training together, 10 years ago?
I think it's about, 8, something like that.
Yeah, a long time ago. And we became really close friends, and here we are. And I admire so much your work. You've been doing so many great things in the world, and you started as a doula, right?
As a nurse midwife.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I've been about 2,000 births.
Wow.
And I have 5 grandchildren, and they're all born at home, which I'm very proud of.
Wow. That's a lesson right there. Like, oh my God. I remember that. So I would like to read your bio real quick. So Crystal Down is the founder of Tantra for Awakening. She's an intimacy coach, Tantra teacher, and spiritual midwife. I love that. She has trained with Sky Dancing Institute and has studied Tibetan Buddhism, yoga, and a variety of non-dual meditation traditions. She is on the faculties of International School of Arts and Venus Rising University. Crystal was a certified nurse midwife for over 20 years and has attended over 2,000 births. Her mission is to be a global paradigm shifter who helps people to awaken to their true nature as love and freedom. She's dedicated to showing people how to live authentically in every moment. Crystal offers workshops and transformation sessions over internet, in person, by phone, and via Skype. She teaches internationally and speaks regularly in conferences and events. She's located in Sedona, and she travels to Canada, Europe, and New Zealand. All right. Welcome to Tantra Lounge.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's exciting. It's nice to see you here in your radio land.
Yeah. So would you tell us how this Tantra got into your life, or how you got into Tantra?
Yeah, well, how it sort of began was I was actually living in San Francisco in midwifery school, and I was making love with the man in my life at the time, and I had a Kundalini awakening, and that just happened to coincide with the release of a couple of books on Tantra that have become classics in America, which was Conscious Loving by Charles Muir and Carolyn Muir, and then Margot Anand's book, The Art of Sexual Ecstasy. It was in 1988. Oh, wow. 1988.
Oh, wow.
So that happened in 1988, and at that time I was studying to be a midwife and became a midwife in 1988. And then I also got very involved in shamanism at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I was really dedicated to being a midwife and also practicing shamanic healing work and learning and doing a lot of my own inner healing, my own inner healing work. And then at some point, fast forward up into the late 90s, I was beginning to feel, as a midwife, you're working with the body a lot with sound and breath and movement in this birthing setting.
It's not so pleasant, the sound. It's not. It's more.
It can be pleasant. I mean, for some people, if they're very relaxed and if they have done, if they've learned to be present in their body and if they can trust their body, you would see women who were able to have beautiful births and they were making those sounds like making love.
Actually, I had that orgasm when my first son was born. And I was so surprised because in the middle of the whole pain, everything is going on, natural birth. I didn't have any medicine whatsoever. Like, how could I be orgasming right now in the middle of?
And it can be that the more if you can be in that relax, because the whole the orgasmic energy needs a certain amount of relaxation, right, to spread through the body, and that's one of the things that you learn in Tantra, how to be relaxed in high states of arousal. That's one of Margot's keys, and so I was noticing like how when you're working with women who are more relaxed and trusting their body and able to be more relaxed in that experience, and really can use the sound, breath, and movement, they can have more of a pleasurable birth experience versus when people are coming in with a lot of fear. And through the 90s, it seemed like women had more and more fear. And so I was also doing a lot of work with in my shamanic healing practice around soul retrieval and working with women around different issues, and men and women both, around their issues around healing and traumas that have happened in their lives. So at some point, I was really saying I need a bridge between the more embodied stuff I'm doing and then that's more shamanic stuff, which is sort of like journeying out into the, non-ordinary, we call it non-ordinary reality. And I'd had this awakening in the late 80s and had Margot's book and Charles' book, and so somehow I got invited by a friend to go to a sky dancing workshop. And the very first exercise we did, I was like, my God, this is me. I am sky dancing Tantra. So I signed up for Margot's very next thing she was doing, which was just a couple months away, and that was in September of 2003.
Wow.
And so then I was very committed to that path for a long time and have been teaching, became certified through her program, her teacher's training, and then have been teaching for about 7 or 8 years now. And in that process of both, bringing Tantra more in my own life and then teaching it to others, I also got involved with the ISTA, which is the International School of Temple Arts, and which kind of, they have a program called the Spiritual Sexual Shamanic Experience, which is
very
totally
new.
right up my alley. So, and so finding ways to bring these I think when I say like I want to be that paradigm shifter, it's like really I feel like we live in a kind of a culture now where the sexual message is kind of a little schizophrenic. Like it's kind of like we use sex to sell.
Tell me more about that.
Well, we use sex to sell everything, from cars to food to beauty and clothes and all kinds of products.
Music,
everything. And yet on the other hand, there's still this kind of shame and guilt and fear around sex, often we don't feel totally like it's okay to be fully in, expanded sexual beings. Like where sex is like okay in certain conditions, right? It's okay in the right place. Like you can't just
good girls won't do it too much.
Yeah, or just even to be an ecstatic being that's, kind of just ecstatically walking down the street. People are it can be a little uncomfortable or not quite sure what's going on. And it can make people uncomfortable.
Because make people think, what is that I'm not doing? Why am I not in my bliss, right? And then it shakes them. Yeah. That's my experience anyways, that close friends, they start to experience my own bliss and the happiness that I have and the joy that I have of being alive. And all of a sudden they're angry at themselves, and then they sometimes get angry even at us because we are a mirror for everything that is not working in their lives.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the things. I also have a workshop I teach called Women Healing Women, and it's really about helping women get past their body image issues and to start feeling like to just accept our bodies how they are, to accept ourselves as we are, to start to begin to let go of any armoring in the body that we've been holding on to.
And a lot of women hold like a whole army in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Divine Kika is an international Tantra master, author, seminar leader, relationship, and sex coach. She will teach you to master your sexuality and self-awareness so you can experience fulfillment and happy relationships while living a life of love, power, and passion. Achieve the love life you have always wanted and have the best sex ever. For life-changing relationship advice and great lovemaking tips, visit divinekika.com. That's divine, Kika.com.
So doing that kind of work where you're helping people release the tensions they're holding in the body, and also how to begin to just learn some basic tools, like we're saying. Sound, breath, and movement.
So give me 3 practical ways that Tantra can help somebody that is just starting, somebody brand new to Tantra that doesn't even know what Tantra is.
Well, one of the things that Margot talks about are the 3 keys of Tantra. So as a midwife, I'll use a midwife metaphor. So we say that it's breath, sound, and movement. Mm-hmm. So, of course, the very first thing we do when we're born is that newborn baby comes out and it has to take that first breath. Mm-hmm. And breath is such an important key. And so often when we're in fear, people, we have a tendency to hold the breath. Mm-hmm. And when we hold the breath, we are keeping that life force energy from flowing, right, through our bodies. And then learning how to, the next thing the baby does, it has that first cry, wah, wah, and it makes that sound. And so sound is that really powerful key for allowing us to begin to feel, because when we make sound, like with song, or anytime we're, celebrating or making mm-hmm. sounds, like kids do on the playground, right? They make sounds naturally. And the sound helps us realize that we're not just confined in our physical body. Mm-hmm. You can feel the sound. All of a sudden we extend because we start to feel our energy body. And to recognize that we're not just limited to this physical form. And then movement, both the external movement of, learning to rock the pelvis and free the spine so energy can move. So when we talk about Kundalini, when I mentioned the Kundalini experience, it's basically feeling the energy, our life force energy, moving up through our central channel or up through the body.
So for somebody new, that's a little confusing. Like, what is Kundalini?
So
I would say the average person right now. I'm thinking the listener that never heard of Tantra.
So I would say, even to stay, we don't have to use the word Kundalini, but just feeling the movement of our life force energy very present in the body. And often in sexuality, that might feel like energy moving up the spine, or feeling an expansion of not the orgasmic energy, not just in our genitals, but through the whole body.
Yeah, it sometimes comes with a tingling sensation, or a heat in the body, or an overwhelming feeling. Yeah,
or even a sense of expansion, like moving out into the universe, or becoming bigger than life.
Yeah. Or connecting so deeply with somebody, like becoming one.
Yeah, exactly. And that sense of that becoming one is something I think most people are familiar with. That sense of when you look into the newborn baby's eyes and you suddenly just go you feel like you're really connecting because they're so open. Or when you look into the eyes of your beloved and you feel that, like everything kind of falls away and you have that intimate moment where there's not even any thoughts. Or when you're looking at a beautiful sunset and suddenly sort of like everything expands and gets quiet, and there's that magical moment where there was no thought. There was just totally being present, what we call presence, like just being there without anything between you and whatever you're perceiving. That can sometimes happen with art or, music, or when we're out in a beautiful natural setting. Mm-hmm. So all those, I think, are the beginnings of just what Tantra is about. Tantra is just really about how to be present, how to open the body, how to just be more aware of our true nature, which I would say often we think in, like the mainstream culture that we're about our body and our mind versus being about that sense of we are the presence or the awareness that is experienced through the body and the mind. And that's really more of our true nature. And I think that's a lot about what Tantra kind of points to, and what different practices help people to become more aware of and more able to tap into on a regular basis, right? Like something as simple as eye gazing, which is one practice that's very common in Tantra workshop, where you set up and allow that person just take a moment and just looking beyond the body, beyond the
Let me tell
form.
you, like looking at you, I feel like those 2,000 babies that you helped to give birth, that you really bring that purity, that like you bring that with you. And I think it's because all the work you have done with yourself and your life's work really show into your eyes, and that just joy of being alive, which is so touching and it's so beautiful to experience. I'm very grateful to be in your presence at this moment. It's so beautiful. To see your sister like that, I'm very touched.
Hi, I'm Divine Kika. I'm here to invite you to my new radio show, this and every Saturday at midnight, to inspire you to create loving, happy, fulfilling relationships in your life and have the best sex ever. I'll teach you tantric sex secrets never known before to spice your life and to give you greater joy. Join me this and every Saturday at midnight. Divine Kika Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. For more information, go to divinekika.com.
So, what is enlightened intimacy? What does that mean to you? That's a very, I like that you want to talk about that, but what does that mean to you?
So, what enlightened intimacy? So, one of the things I've been on my own spiritual path, there's been teaching Tantra and teaching people how to, have more intimacy. And when I say intimacy, some people might think that's kind of a euphemism for sex or intercourse, but
Intimacy.
So there's that aspect, there is that sexual aspect of intimacy, but also intimacy we can have intimacy with our children, our parents, our co-workers, our friends. So it's that ability to really drop into that moment of connection, right? And to feel like there's not that distance. Often when we're kind of in our minds thinking, and often you might say we put on that mask of our personality out of a sense of maybe we don't quite feel safe to really drop our guard and be totally authentic. So helping to, allowing people to drop into their authenticity. I think that's one of the most important aspects. When I say enlightened intimacy, it's like, what does it mean to allow somebody to really see into you and to be really present to see into them, not so much at the level of the person or the personality, but at that soul level, you might say, or that authentic level of our true, I call it the true self, but who we are outside of the labels that we carry. Because
like when we were a baby.
There's
no holding back.
Right, when we're just being being as we are. And so by enlightened intimacy, I'm talking about the ability to be able to, it's not even the ability exactly, but just coming to know ourselves as that awareness that is naturally connected to everything.
So is that the authenticity you're talking about?
Yeah. So when we are in the place of our authentic being, that's kind of like we've dropped our guards. And we've dropped maybe the masks or the habits that we use to create a little distance to keep ourselves feeling safe, which is often when we live, especially in a metropolitan, I live in a small town that's kind of a new agey town and a spiritual place. So, there it might be a little bit easier. You're also out in nature where it's very beautiful. And often, like on a vacation, we might find that we'd kind of drop some of our guardedness. But often, in an inner city situation, there's a way of, how we carry ourselves to make sure that we're going to feel comfortable in the world. And so the authenticity is beginning to soften the way that we carry ourselves, and really in kind of that heart opening, not so much in a romantic sense, but the heart opening in the authentic sense of like just letting yourself be as you are and be seen for, and it's not so much who you are, but what you are. What we actually are is that awareness, or that the divine, what I call the divine. And if you're not, so if that word isn't resonance, you could just say your true self or your authentic self. So authenticity is one aspect. How to be present, which we mentioned earlier, the presence piece. And by presence, I mean presence is sort of when we can get, because so often especially in the busier we tend to be, the more we're in our head. And you've had that experience where you're talking to someone, you can almost tell that they're not really listening.
Most people are not all there.
Yeah,
they're thinking about what else is there, and they're let's do this eye-gazing thing, and they're not fully there. And when people drop in, it's such a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, and that's what happens in a like when you're doing your Tantra meetups or your Tantra classes or your work with coaching. You're really teaching people how to stop for a moment and get out of their heads, out of their thinking mind, to take a moment to just really get into present. And it's something that it's natural.
I think our presence is a gift that we give, and I try to give this gift everywhere. Some days I'm close. Some days I don't want to see so many people, and I want to stay in my little cave. Yeah. And I honor that, because those days, those cave-in moments are recharging, and they're important. Yes. But when I go out in the world, I like to go, even at the grocery store or wherever I am, I like to make that eye contact, even though sometimes people feel a little bit uncomfortable if I look in their eyes. But still, it's like, I'm offering the gift of my presence.
Yeah, exactly.
And I try to do that often. And I invite you to do that often. Yes. Like, if you're listening to us, like, the more you do that, the more you're in touch with your own self, the more you feel who you really are, and you connect with your own divinity.
Yes, and exactly. And I think that's when I say the word intimacy. I think because I think as humans, we're all kind of, there's that natural longing for that kind of connection. And it's not so much, often that longing comes through kind of the way it's become kind of that consumer thing, where you're looking for the thing, the new car, the new dress, the new restaurant, the new lover, whatever. We're looking outside ourselves for something that's going to give us that feeling of like, yes, now I'm whole, now I'm complete. But really, the essence of what I call enlightened intimacy is the recognition that when we drop into presence, we recognize that we are complete. So we don't need to be looking outside of ourselves for that thing, and it's something that's once you kind of, it becomes something that you're more familiar with. It's very easy because it is a natural.
You can forget about it very easy. Yeah. I think most people forget about it very easily, and it's like going back and even like do I gaze in the mirror, or sometimes I'm outside and in my garden and I like to just be present with the birds, and that will bring me to my divinity. It doesn't need to be a person there.
Exactly.
And as long as I take the time to go inside, and as long as you take the time to go inside and honor your alone time as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because some people also don't have enough alone time, and they're overwhelmed.
Yes.
We all know the physical aspects of sex, but we rarely hear of the spiritual side. 10 Tantric Sex Secrets for Greater Sex, Love, and Intimacy Tonight by Divine Kika will bring you extraordinary bliss. This titillating and easy-to-read book will transform your ordinary sex life to breathtaking, amazing, powerful. Great for beginners, let this book be your first step to a happier love life. 10 Tantric Sex Secrets for Greater Sex, Love, and Intimacy Tonight. Available in hard copy, ebook, and audio format at divinekika.com. That's divine, Kika.com.
I'm real excited about your new book, 10 Tantric Sex Secrets. And it's really beautiful that you came out with this, and so I'm hoping that everybody can find it and read what she's written here and take a great start to your own tantric journey, and take a look at this sweet book. It's a great little pamphlet. It's easy to read, and Kika's just wonderful.
And then they don't want to connect there because they're not available even for themselves.
Exactly.
So if you are in that situation, I invite you to take more time alone.
Yeah. And it's not so much about what it looks like, because like sometimes, like I was just at a meditation retreat, so sometimes people think, to get present, I have to go meditate, and I have to sit for an hour on a cushion, and or I have to go do yoga. And it's not so much about what it looks like, whether you're sitting on a meditation cushion or going to a yoga practice, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I've been recently studying with a teacher who he recommends that you do 2 to 5 second, like little micro meditations throughout the day. Like he says, like 12 times a day, you stop for 2 to 5 seconds, and you just take a moment of presence for 2 to 5 seconds. And I have a little app on my phone that's called Insight Timer, which is a couple bucks if you download it, and you can set it so it goes off like
Be present now.
Every half hour it'll ring a little bell, and then I just stop. And
So
I
the
do
rest
that.
of the time you don't need to be present, just every 30 minutes.
Well, what I find, what's interesting about it is because I've been doing that for a while, and then I was at a couple places recently where you can't carry your iPhone around. So I noticed then what it becomes is a habit of consciousness, a habit of presence. And
That's
so
beautiful.
once you've done it for a while, then you just notice, and you just naturally take, just like when you're at work and you can't wait to your 10-minute coffee break, it becomes, it's been a half an hour, now it's time for a moment of presence. And it becomes just that intimate moment with yourself, noticing that awareness is always right here.
So, say the name of the app again.
It's called the
Insight
Timer app, and they have a free version, but I recommend, I think it's like $2.99 or $3.99 to get the version where you can set. I use it in different
and you
various
set
ways.
be present moments.
I just set be present, for 2 to 5 seconds, and you can set they have multiple little bells. I'm not making any money off of this, by the way. They have multiple little bells, and you can set how long you want the bell to last. And it's just a beautiful, that's one of the things about these apps. It's just a beautiful little practice to give yourself, because initially, sometimes it's a little hard for us to remember.
And even for those of us that know how to be present, our life is so busy that we forget sometimes. We're just on the go. Yeah. Now, you talk about conscious communication, and that's one of my favorite topics.
Okay.
I love the work of Scott, and I love Scott Katamas has been like a lot, like all the teachers bring his work in the show, which is awesome. And I would love to hear from you. What is conscious communication for you?
Okay, I'm going to have a sip of water, and then I'll tell you.
She's conscious about her body needing to be nurtured.
So when I talk about conscious communication, it means a few things, but I think so often when we're communicating, especially if it's in a situation where there's a charge, like an emotional charge, it's easy for us to go more into that person, the personality that suddenly wants to, something, there's a problem, I want something, I have a need, I have a desire, and we can go into that more reactive communication where we just want the other person to hear our issue and fix it. And we don't take the time to first drop into that presence piece. So in conscious communication, which is really comes from Margot's work, the way I teach it in my workshops, and I think probably of all the things I teach, this is one of the most important things because it really is teaching people how to drop into that sense of presence. And so you probably remember this from when you were in Margot's class, but it's like creating, and it doesn't have to be done in a formal sense, but it is a beautiful thing. So creating, like, just even mentally or with your arms, imagining you're in a bit of a bubble, right? And then taking that moment and when we make that bubble, whether it's just in our minds or physically, it's just taking that moment of saying, I'm going to let go of everything outside, letting go of everything outside the bubble so that you can really have a moment of that intimate, enlightened communication.
Divine Kika is an international Tantra master, author, seminar leader, relationship and sex coach. She will teach you to master your sexuality and self-awareness so you can experience fulfillment while living a life of love, power and passion. She guides you achieve the love life you have always wanted and have the best sex ever. If you want to create a truly happy relationship, sign up for personal coaching sessions today at www.divinekika.com.
Taking out of the bubble.
Yeah, taking things out of the bubble that might interfere. Bringing things into the bubble that would...
Shall we demo that?
Yeah, we could do that. Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So let's create that bubble.
Okay, all right. And then we could do a little namaste.
Yeah, a heart salutation. So.
Yeah. Namaste, Kika.
Namaste.
And just take out any being self-conscious of an audience.
Everybody else is watching us.
Yeah.
Don't unplug. Stay with us.
Yeah, that's okay. Yep.
So this is how you do it. You make a bubble and you're with your partner, and you start to take things out. Like, for example, if you're nervous, you can take it out.
Yeah.
There is not much, I think, for us to take out because we're so connected and we're in our blissful space right now.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't feel like there is anything really that I need to take out.
And
maybe
then,
in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so then you take the opportunity to take anything out of the bubble, which could be things like concerns about time or your kids or what's happening next.
Anger, past issues.
Yes. And then there's also the opportunity to bring things into the bubble that would kind of make it feel even better, like happiness or intimacy or authenticity or
love,
ease or playfulness, those kind of things.
Orgasms.
Yeah, exactly. And this is also a really good practice to do before making love, especially if there's been like a lot of tension going on. Not even if it's not even between the two of you, but in just in life in general.
Right, and then the next step would be the boundaries, right? Like that's where we go.
We go to the desire. I usually start with the desires.
Oh, really? You do the desires first?
I usually do desires, fears, and then boundaries.
Okay, so how do you describe the desires? How would you share? Because that's a challenging thing for a lot of people. How do I share my desire, right? I'm very good saying what I like and what I want, but a lot of people have a challenge.
Yeah, and you can also talk because I notice for some people desires could be a little bit of a button. So then I also use the word intention. So desire or intention, and it has to do with the context in which
I do them separate. That's interesting that you did it together.
Yeah, I do those either desire or intention, and so it's kind of like what is and that often has to do with what is the intention of this bubble specifically. Are we doing this to clear up a misunderstanding, or just as a way to tap into each other before we're going to, make love, or you do a process, a practice.
And when we share our intention, there is something deep that attracts that. That's something so beautiful, right? Like that is that. Now, a topic, I hear you mentioned boundaries, and I would like to hear from you, what are boundaries? How does somebody, because the boundaries are such a powerful topic.
I think, and I would, so how I do them, I say, what is your desire or your intention? What are your fears or concerns? And it's important to do both.
Popping a bubble.
Yeah, what are your fears or concerns? And then what are your healthy, I use the term healthy boundaries. Because we can have, unhealthy boundaries where we're very guarded or protected versus our healthy boundaries. So how I talk about a healthy boundary is where the intimacy happens where two people's healthy boundaries meet. So when I know what my healthy boundary is and you know what your healthy boundary is, that's the place where we can have intimacy. If I'm either way guarded and protecting myself, or if I'm totally over here in your business telling you what I think you should be doing with your life, then there's not going to be a lot of intimacy because either we're too pulled back, too protected, or we're like, in somebody else's business trying to control them or get them, to get us what we want. And the healthy boundary is, what do I need to feel safe, and what do I need so that I can stay open? And the other thing about boundaries...
Wait, let's rephrase that. I love what you just said. So a healthy boundary would be, what do I need in order to feel safe? Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
So what do I need to feel safe?
Being conscious of that. Like, ask yourself that. It's a very important thing.
Yes.
To know that, because most people don't know.
Exactly. So what do I need to feel safe, and what do I need to stay open?
What do I need to stay open?
Yes.
That's a key one.
Yes, exactly.
Because to stay safe is not really generating...
Right, the openness, the heart, open
the
heart.
Openness. Now, what do I need in order to open up?
Yeah. But if we start to feel unsafe, our heart will close, So that's one. So we need to have the safety and the openness. And the other thing about boundaries is that they're very dynamic. So when we use the word dynamic, means that they can open and close.
Tomorrow.
They can change moment to moment. Like
so
you can,
good to do that often.
So what the thing about healthy boundaries is being able to notice, being present enough to notice when all of a sudden somebody says something, and you withdraw.
And you close.
Or you close.
And then it's an opportunity to share When you say that, I feel close. I notice I pull away.
Yeah,
And that's a beautiful gift to your partner.
Yeah, and also to learn how to not blame the person who said whatever,
Right,
but to notice it's about your stuff.
Yeah.
And but also to be able to be transparent enough, to be present enough first to notice it, and then transparent enough to be able to speak to it. And it can happen the other way too. You know, there can be
how they say that, to be conscious enough to notice and transparent enough to share it.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So those are some of the important things. And also, when I say the word boundary, often people have this image in their mind. They think that it's going to be a wall. There's going to be a boundary here. Don't get in. Yeah, but a boundary is actually a bridge. That's how I present it. Healthy boundaries are a bridge to intimacy. So when you know what your boundary is, you can stay open and you can be transparent. So it's kind of like if you don't know what your boundaries are, then there's a tendency to either, I don't know what my boundary is, so I'm going to be very guarded, or I don't know what my boundary is, and if you're kind of a daredevil, I'm just going to run out there and just do whatever, and then I'll deal with the consequences later. And then sometimes you do things that later you don't feel so good about. So that's the healthy boundary is about. How can I be safe, be self-responsible, and also be able to stay open so I can have this experience. And
it can be as simple as, would love to make love to you, but I would like to use protection. That's a healthy boundary.
Exactly.
Very simple.
Or I would love to be sexually intimate with you, but I don't want to have intercourse until I feel like we're at I'm at a place where I'm ready for that, which might be later tonight, or it might be tomorrow, or it might be in 2 years, or it might be in 2 weeks. I don't know. But because I think sometimes people think when they start to become sexually involved in whatever way, that somehow that implies that there's no boundaries. Like, okay, now we started to get sexually intimate, and now whatever is going to happen, instead of being able to say, this is what my boundary is right now, and that can change moment to moment to moment. It can go both ways. Because sometimes you can have an experience where you're looking in someone's eyes and you're feeling this deep connection, and then they say something which maybe they're saying very innocently, but it's something that your ex-partner said, or your father or your mother, and
trigger.
It's like, and then all of a sudden it's like you pull back a bit and you need to say, like, I just noticed when you said that, I'm not saying that you were saying it in any negative way, but it brought something up for me. So now let me get present with myself again. Because when we go in that reactivity, we lose our presence for a moment often. So that's why those healthy boundaries are so important.
Welcome to Tantra Lounge.
Sex Talk Radio.
Divine Kika is a radiant force, overflowing with positive energy, guiding you to a heart-opening, blissful, authentic, tantric experience. This show will help you to expand your joy, cultivate more intimacy in your life, and rediscover the pleasure within your personal relationships. A lot of people have questions out there about Tantra. I think there's a lot of misconceptions, would you say? Some misunderstandings about what it's all about?
Yeah. When I say I'm a Tantra teacher, people look at me like I wish I could show you their faces. They have these big eyes and like a little, when excitement, it's like a little bit of fear and a little bit of nervous, and they look with these big eyes and a big smile because a big part of them is really curious about what it is.
Of course.
But then there is a little bit fear. So it all means excitement.
I think so. It's a stimulating topic.
Tantra is a path like Zen or yoga that uses sexuality as a door to awareness.
That's right.
And then Tantra is also choosing with awareness what brings us joy. Now, if we're expanding that, like what is really be conscious enough, knowing oneself enough, knowing your surroundings, knowing what your deepest desires, fears, emotions, and send that into how can I bring more joy into my life? And from that joy, expand throughout all those around me.
Absolutely. I think that when it comes to Tantra and sex, it's such a hot topic. Of course, people are interested in it. Of course, they want to hear about it. They want to talk about it. But really, it's just scratching the surface of it. Although sexuality is very much embraced in Tantra, it is really not the primary focus or point.
question for you. Boundaries violation. Because a lot of the students bring that up, right? And when my boundaries are violated or when my boundaries are not heard, how do I state that in a loving way?
So what I've noticed is, first of all, again, it goes back to that presence piece, being clear what your boundary is, and then being clear that you spoke it. Because sometimes we know what our boundary is, but then we don't totally feel comfortable to really say it, so we don't totally say it in a clear way.
Good point.
So you need to make sure that did you speak it? And then sometimes what happens with the other person, especially if you get into a either emotionally charged or sexually charged situation.
Which people do all the time, because when there is love and connection,
and it can happen innocently on the part of the person who may be crossing the boundary, is that they just momentarily forgot, or they got excited, or maybe they read your energy in a way that they thought somehow they'd gotten permission, and those kind of misunderstandings happen. It's part of the human experience. So how I would suggest is, as soon as you notice that, because you'll feel it in your body, you'll feel a tightening,
a contraction.
So then you it's the easiest thing to do is just look at your partner and say, wow, I notice right now my body got tense. You're not even having to talk about what
that's really nice. And my body got tense.
You're just stating the experience. I noticed just now when you touched me there, I got tense in my body, and that's reminding me that I said my boundary was X, and I feel like maybe that. Even whatever your intent was in touching me that way, that I'm realizing that maybe that boundary is not ready to be crossed. That's where my boundary is right now. So let's just take one step back. We don't have to run to the other side of the room or out of the building. Let's just take one step back. Let's both get present for a moment.
Just take a deep breath together.
Yeah, take a deep breath, look at each other. That's always when eye gazing is good too, because the other person, anytime when somebody tells you they got tense, you're going to feel a little like, oh no.
I did something wrong.
I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do something that would make you uncomfortable. So also having the compassion, for yourself and the other person. And maintaining that connection through the eyes, or taking a moment where we both close our eyes and go inward and notice where we're feeling.
It creates a lot more connection this way than go, you didn't honor my boundary.
Yeah, exactly. And for the most part, I think in most situations, of course there are exceptions, especially if drugs or alcohol are involved, that gets a little bit messier.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, when a boundary gets crossed, it's usually because the person went unconscious for a moment, and we all do that. Even people who, even those of us in this field who have cultivated our ability to be really present and conscious and aware and reading people's energy, we can, in our personal lives especially, sometimes, we make mistakes too, and cross somebody's boundary without meaning to. So it's not that we're trying to do it perfectly. I think that's the other thing. Is often
being consciously.
Yeah, but just saying, how can I be conscious, do my best to communicate, be as self-aware as I can, take responsibility. Because I think what happens a lot of times is that we stay what our boundary is, and then we kind of put the responsibility on the other person to honor our boundary, right? And that's not really their job. No. So if we notice we're contracting, then we need to say, wow, I think because maybe my boundary shifted too. And so I need to come back to myself.
That's nice to revisit every now and then, right? It's so nice to talk to you. It feels like we're having tea somewhere and just relaxing and chatting. And I'm happy that we are actually bringing some simple tools for you. It's things that maybe we talk about in the shows before, but these things that is still like we need to remember them and we need to practice them every day. And I know you're doing the conference in Montreal, and I'm really excited. I hope I can be there.
Yeah, I hope you can.
I would love to be a speaker. Yeah. And tell me about the conference, when it's happening, who's going to be there?
So the International School of Temple Arts, which is also called ISTA, has been having conferences in North America. This is the 14th annual. And for the first time this year, we're going to be doing it in Canada, in Montreal, which is a beautiful city that's almost like going to Europe. It's like a cheap man's trip to Europe. It's beautiful. It's very French. And it's very old, it's very old, and it has a lot of beautiful architecture and great restaurants and awesome culture. You're going to ask me that. It's the Hotel Europa, I believe.
Okay.
The website is sexualrenaissance.com. And
it's going to be showing right now.
You're going to be showing it on there. And it's May 22nd to 24th. We have about 35 speakers already scheduled, and we have four keynote speakers, which is going to be Baba Des, who was the founder of ISTA. It's going to be Ma Premo, and she is a Canadian woman who also lives in France, who's been a Tantra teacher up in the Montreal area. It's going to be Lori Handlers, who's a good dear friend of mine who lives in Phoenix, who's been teaching Tantra on the East Coast and here for many, many years, and she's someone I've taught with. And it's going to be this Kai Pacha, who is a astrologer. He talks about astrology, the astrology of masculine and feminine, and shifting the paradigm around our relations through astrology and our awareness of the stars.
Beautiful. So and how do we contact you? TantraForAwakening.com is your website, and I imagine you're available for private sessions and Skype sessions and whatever people like.
Yes, exactly.
And people can book you to be a speaker in places too.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're going to show your website. So, and I invite you to look at our YouTube show. And if you're just listening to the radio, just go to our Facebook page. And all the videos of previous show, including Baba Des, who we just speak about. We have a show with him that I highly invite you to watch. And thank you for being here, Crystal. What a beautiful, enlightening, simple, but yet so powerful lessons today. So beautiful. Thank you for your presence and your baby-like presence. Like, it's so beautiful. It's such a gift to be in your presence. Thank you.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you all.
This is another edition of Tantra Lounge, Sex Talk Radio. I see you next week.